Okay, so in this video, this is going to be our second video of looking at Node and then MongoDB and Mongoose. We're going to take a look at installing MongoDB, talk a little bit about some of those issues, also how to access it and so forth. And then in the final video, we'll see how to connect to the database and make use of that for implementing the translation. So I have our a link here for downloading MongoDB. So a couple of things that are a little off-putting or perhaps a bit confusing. You'll notice, so I'm actually on a Windows 7 machine here, and you'll notice the only options I have are for Windows Server 2008. I'm not sure if it's the case. You'll see only these options if you're on something like Windows 10. That might be the case. But anyways, it turns out this version is in fact the correct version, and will work on my system. I've already actually downloaded it, so I'm not going to download that here. And I've run the installer. The installer is fairly straightforward and so forth. There are a couple of things that you should be aware of as well, though, and that's here in the installation instructions. Okay, so the first part, if you scroll down, is this section here important. So if you are running Windows Server 2008 or Windows 7, notice there's a hotfix that you're going to need to install. So you click on this link, it takes you to Microsoft's site, and in my case, it required that I enter in my email address, and then Microsoft emailed me the hotfix. It basically was sent automatically fairly quickly, but nevertheless, that was how I had to get that. So you are going to want to do that if you are on one of those operating systems. The other thing is that we're going to want to add Mongo database tools to our Windows path. Okay, if you've never done that before, it's actually fairly simple. So I'm just I'll type env, and I'll go up here to edit the system environment variables, and click on environment variables, and then I'm going to come down here to the system variables section and go to path. Okay, so path is the one that I want. I'm going to click edit. If you're working with something like Windows 10, you'll actually have a much nicer view here of each entry separately. I'm working on Windows 7, so I have this kind of older view. So we're going to put a semicolon in there. That's what that is there. And then what I need is the bin directory that's part of MongoDB. So I'm just going to come over here to where I installed that. The easiest way is I'm going to do a kind of cut and paste. So I'll go to Program Files. I'm going to go down to MongoDB, and I'm going to go to Server 3.4 and Bin. So this is the folder that I want. So you can see I have it on my D drive. If you only have a single drive in Windows, then that's going to be your C drive. So I'm just going to I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and then I'm going to paste that onto the end right after the semicolon here, like so. Okay, so that adds it to my path. I'll click OK. I'll click OK again. Click OK one more time, and now that's in my path. There's another step that I'm going to need to do too. So I'm going to do this from within WebStorm, but let's actually kind of take care of this. So one, I might be able to get away with running the terminal right from here and having that updated environment variable set. But just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and exit WebStorm and restart it. So one of the things that we're going to need for MongoDB is we're actually going to need a place for it to store the database files. You can actually put it on whatever drive. You can see actually, in fact, in addition to C and D, I also have an F drive. So you could either do this from the command line. I'm actually just going to do it here. I think it's a little bit easier. So here in on my D drive, which is where I want it, I'm going to create a folder. I'll just go New and Folder, and I'll say create a folder called Data. And then in there, I will create a folder called DB. So I have the d:/data/db. Those are the folders. That's the chain of folders for where I want the database files stored. All right, once we have that, we can fire up the Mongo database server itself. So we can just do mongodb.exe, and then we do tac db path, and this is where we're going to specify where that folder is. Again, if you only have a C drive, then just put this on the C drive. In my case, I'm putting it on my D drive, and that's it. So let me go ahead and move this up just so we can see as this runs kind of what happens and so forth. So when we run MongoD, the Mongo daemon, you see that that basically it says that it starts and so forth. If you are on one of the systems that needs the hotfix and you don't have the hotfix installed, you'll actually see a message in here saying that that hotfix is not there. Similarly, if you happen to run this without having your database path created, you will get an error. It will not work. Okay, so again, some things to look for. You'll notice it is in fact running on the regular server. I'm sorry, the regular port. So there's a couple of different ways that we can interact with this. In the book, they show using the Mongo shell directly for interacting and so forth. We're actually not going to do that. We're not going to do it for a couple of reasons. One is, so the book certainly shows a lot about inserting records into the database and so forth to update the database and all of that. Here, in the particular example that I'm going to use, we're actually just going to load pre-existing data into the database, and we will, and really the only thing that we're going to be doing for our program is we're just simply going to be accessing that data. And this is important because this is also what you're going to be required to do for the final exam. So your project for the final exam isn't going to ask you to have your programmatically write to the database, but you will have to be able to read data from the database. So once we have the database running, we need some way of accessing, and it turns out there is actually a plugin for WebStorm to be able to do this. Now, what I'm first going to do is I'm just going to come back over to this one. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to hit Control-C to kill that server, right? So that server is actually down. I'll even type exit here to actually shut down the terminal. Okay, so to install, to basically install this, let's see, I can probably do... I'm just going to search here for plugin, and you'll notice here's this actions right here. It says plugins, and it pops up this little dialog here. So what I'm going to search for is Mongo, right? And notice it says there's no plugins found because I don't have the Mongo plugin installed, but I can click on this search in repository. So that'll kind of search the internet, and lo and behold, it does find the Mongo plugin. And so I'll go ahead and install that, right? We'll just click that. It'll go fairly quickly, and notice I do have to restart WebStorm to be able to use that. So yeah, we'll go ahead and restart that. Right, there's all the files that it created for the database. I don't think anything yet, nothing in there. But you'll notice a bunch of files, some additional directories, and so forth. Okay, so now that we have that, notice over here I do have Mongo Explorer. If you don't see that, I believe you can go to View and Tool Windows and click Mongo Explorer. Okay, so that'll actually pull that up for you as well. And so you see no server available, okay, because we need to do configuration and all of that. So basically, let's start configuring this. I'm just going to click on the little wrench here. And you'll notice the first thing it asks is the path to the Mongo shell. So I'm just going to click the little dots there, and I'm now going to navigate to my install directory for Mongo database. And bin, and what we want is this one here, just mongo.exe, not the server that we were running, but mongo.exe itself. That's the Mongo shell. And I'll click OK. We can even test that to see, and yes, we get the little check mark and so forth. Now, right now, so if I just click OK, you'll notice I still don't have any servers available because I haven't actually added the server per se. Okay, so let me go back into this, and to add the connection to the server, I'm just going to click on this little plus button right here. So when I click that, it's going to ask for a label, so I'll just name it localhost. And pretty much that's it. I can go with all of the rest of the defaults, because when I run the server, I'm just going to let it use the default port. That's the 27017. And so I don't really need to do anything else. I'll just click OK and click OK. So there we have localhost. Now, if I try to right click and do connect to server, it's not going to work. The reason is I don't have the Mongo server running just yet. So let me go ahead and come over to my shell, and once again I'm going to run the mongo exe, and again remember to put the database path data/db. Okay, so that runs. Yes, we're going through. Okay, there we are, waiting for connection. So it is ready to be connected to. All right, so let's take a look. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to say connect to this server, and there I have the various databases on that particular server. So I have admin and local sitting in there, and it gives us some stats about all of that. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let's get some data into Mongo. So again, there's a couple of different ways we could do this. We could actually write code that inserts it. We could go directly to the Mongo shell. One of the really handy things, a lot of times data comes in a format called CSV, which stands for comma separated value files. So I already have such a file right here, the Pirate Translate CSV. Okay, so I have that file here. You can go ahead and actually download that, and I'm going to do that right now. So I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to right-click and say Save Link As. And again, I'm going to throw that I'm going to put that right in my project folder for Node Demo. So here it is. There's piratetranslate.csv. Now, a CSV file is nothing more than a plain text file, but there's some additional nice formatting that allows you to play around with that. So one, if you have Excel installed, it will actually open this. I believe Pages on the Mac will also do the same thing. But before I even do that, let me just open this with Notepad++, just so we can see. Right, so a comma-separated value basically means that the columns are separated by commas. So essentially, this file has two columns, right? A phrase column and a translation column, because we have here an actual header row. And then so we have the translation. So for instance, hello is going to be translated to ahoy, pardon me is going to be translated to avast, excuse me is going to be translated to r, etc. And you can see some things are actual phrases, right? So where is be, war be, can you help me find, is know ye, etc. So that's what that looks like in plain text. If I open that up in Excel, then we get kind of this nice, at least, columnar view of this, right? You can see that what the individual columns are and so forth. So it gives you a good idea of what's in there. What I like about this is it's a fairly small data file. I didn't actually create this. If you do a search for nifty assignments and pirate translations, you'll find the actual original assignment that was created by, I forget the person's name. I do apologize to him if he happens to watch this. But you can certainly find that and find his stuff here. All right. No, I don't need to save that. Okay, so there's my file, and again, this happens to be the same folder that I am in here at the terminal, except notice this terminal is currently being taken up by the server running. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the little plus here to get a second terminal window. And notice if I do a dir, I see there's piratetranslate.csv. So let's load this into our Mongo database. So we use a program that comes with MongoDB, Mongo import, and since we've added the bin directory to our path, we can just type that out here without having to put in a path for us, and then we can start specifying stuff. So I'm going to use the -d flag and to specify the name of the database. So I'm going to call it the pirate DB. Then we have to specify the name of the collection itself, right? So a collection in MongoDB is roughly akin to a table in a regular relational database. There is a little bit of trickiness that you have to be concerned with here. So the particular library that we're going to use for accessing Mongo generally expects that the collection's name is going to have an S on the end of it. So for instance, I will call this the pirate translations plural, right? Because I know then when I actually access it from the library, it's going to kind of tack that in for us. Now, Mongo import allows us to import a number of different types of files, and since we are using CSV, we're going to need to specify that. So we use the tac type and specify that it is in fact CSV. Finally then, or actually not quite finally, we'll specify the actual file. So that's pirate, and I'll just hit tab. I can do tab completion there to get that, put another space. And then finally, the last one is header line, which basically tells Mongo import that the first line of the file, as we saw, is actually the header. Okay, so that's basically what we want there. So all of that stuff in. Now I'm going to hit enter, and you'll notice it tells me it imported 16 documents, right? Again, let me just open that back up here, and yeah, 16, because of course the first one is the header line. So they have in fact been added to the Mongo database. Now if I come over here, I don't see any changes, but what I can do is I can do refresh this server. I also could have clicked that. So I click refresh the server, and there it is, right? There's the pirate database. Notice if I spin that open, I see the pirate translations collection, and I can actually double click on this and I can see all of the records, right? So there's the first phrase, hello and ahoy. What you will also notice, it added in a special _ID field for each of these that is essentially a unique ID for each of the records. Okay, but all of the stuff is there for us, stored in the Mongo database. Now, one more thing I want to show you is that we have the ability to get a Mongo shell directly and interact directly with the database here. So if you need to do this for debugging purposes or just to explore, notice what you do need to do is you'll select the database itself. So I'm going to have Pirate DB selected, and you see this little icon here, that's for running the Mongo shell. So when I click that, you notice it comes in, tells me the particular version and so forth. So let's actually do a couple of things. So first I'm just going to say that I want to make sure that I'm using the Pirate database. And notice hitting enter actually doesn't run it directly, because the way this shell is set up is you can have multiple lines you can have multiple line commands. So here I'm just going to click the execute, and it does say that it switched the database to the pirate database. So to do real quick, just kind of find, I can do db dot and then the name of the collection, pirate translations. And then we can use the find command. And then I could, for instance, find something. I could look for the phrase hello. Oops, and again, let me go ahead and run that, and we can see there it is. It finds the actual object itself. Let's just take a look. Suppose we have something like this, foobar, which isn't actually in there. What does that, let's see, I think this is, there it is, control enter. Okay, so Control Enter. Notice it doesn't give me anything back. I'm not actually restricted to only looking by phrase. I can actually do the opposite lookup. For instance, an up arrow. Notice there is a history to this. If I actually looked for translation, ahoy, and again Control Enter. There it is. It actually finds that phrase. So we can do the searches and so forth and interact with this in that manner. To get out, just type exit, and that, again, make sure to execute that, and that will kill that process. So that's actually it for this video. That's all I wanted to cover for this video. As I said, in the next video, what we're going to do is we'll come back in and we'll take a look at now how to hook up, how to actually talk directly to the Mongo database from our application, from our web application, to allow it to do the translation to Pirate.